Awesome. So I would assume you're on tour at the moment or on a stop somewhere.
Yeah, I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm doing the Laugh Fest
Okay.
at Dr. Grin's.
Gotcha.
So I'm kicked back. I'm on a little couch thing here. I got these velvety-looking curtains behind me.
Well,
yeah, very fancy. I almost did the interview in a bathrobe, but I decided that's not really the way to go.
I would have been completely down for it, to be honest.
Yeah, if I were kicked back like this with a bathrobe on, that would really be something.
So you're kind of, let's say, a household figure at the local comedy shop here in Springfield, at the Blue Room. That's how I found out about you, because you'd been there a couple times, and then just some stuff like that.
Blue Room a lot. Yeah, Christopher Michael Ray's great. Yeah, I like the Blue Room.
Nice. And then you had a video there where you, the Working Man video that was released on your YouTube from the Blue Room.
Yeah, that was a good time.
But I mean, you've been up to a million different things recently.
What's this thing on your desk here, real quick?
This is I want to say the Val Kilmer Batman mask.
Okay.
That my dad collected like years and years ago from some garage sale, and it's on a like one of those foam mannequin heads.
Yeah.
And it sets on his desk, so it sits here, and then his painting sits behind me. He's an artist, so.
Your dad or Val Kilmer?
My dad and Val Kilmer. It's one and the same. I know I seem a little young to be Val Kilmer's kid, but he started late, so.
I don't know how old Val Kilmer is. Is he old?
I don't really know either. You'd think as my father I would know that by now, but.
He's a mysterious guy, though.
It's rude to ask, so we don't.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't ask your dad. Yeah. He's a mysterious guy, Val Kilmer.
Does he still do stuff? I know Michael Keaton still does stuff.
I think he's pretty hard to work with.
Really?
That's what people say.
And how many movies have you started with him now? It's been at least 3?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I wish. I would work with him.
Who was the other one? Edward Norton, they said. They couldn't keep him out of the editing booth for the Hulk, and that's why Mark Ruffalo is now the Hulk.
Yeah, they say he's hard to work with, too. Good for Mark Ruffalo, though. That's really his only role that anyone knows him from now.
It's that and 13 going on 30 is his his whole deal.
That his biggest role is being a CGI character.
Gotta love it. Him and Josh Brolin got to wear giant goofy costumes together for the new Infinity War.
Yeah, Josh Brolin gets to be 2 Marvel characters at the same time.
And you know he made so much money last year. It's who can comprehend? Because that Deadpool. Yeah, man, I could. Well, then you got Chris Evans, who has been Human Torch, Captain America. He was in Push. And the Scott Pilgrim, and there's one more. He's been a comic book character in like at least 5 movies.
I didn't know that. I don't know Scott Pilgrim, and I don't know Push, but I knew the Human Torch.
Scott Pilgrim's awesome. It's based off a comic book, and then they made a movie with Michael Cera and all that jazz. But
oh yeah,
it's really good. And so if you ever get bored and you want to watch something that's unlike any other movie I've ever seen, because they made it like a comic book.
Okay.
So it's filmed very strangely, and it's based in like Canada, and there's all kinds of random celebrity cameos and stuff. But
all right, I'll check that out.
So what do you do all day when you're not at shows? I've watched some of your vlogs, so I kind of got a general idea, but
well, like today I had a little bit of a ride. I was in Mount Pleasant, Michigan last night at a casino, and then I had an hour and a half ride back to Grand Rapids. And then since I've been here, there's a giant bathtub, so I took a bath. That killed about 20 minutes. And then I stared at my phone for a while. And then right about the time you messaged me, I was contemplating a nap. So I'm glad you messaged me. And then I'll go find coffee. And then I'll go, I should be writing some jokes. And then I'll go have a cigar or something like that. I'll do everything I can do to keep from writing jokes. I updated my website. I did stuff like that. What I need to do is write jokes, but I do everything else in the world.
What's your cigar of choice, or do you have one?
Well, there's a brand called My Father Cigar. That's what I like. It's called I forget the actual, but My Father makes a ton of cigars.
Okay.
And then this is like a box press. It's a I never can remember the name. It's in a different language.
Do you when you come to Springfield, have you been to Just for Him Cigar Lounge?
I have been there, yeah.
Yeah, that's the place. I mean, they have so many different. A lot of the guys, I think the owner said he smoked every single cigar in that room. I couldn't even tell you how many are in that room because they're everywhere.
I could never work at a cigar shop. I mean, those guys smoke cigars all day, every day.
Yeah, my mouth would be like an ashtray. It'd be so dry and dusty.
I like that place though, Just for Him. That's good. The last time I was there, I hung out with Tim. He's a comic there in Springfield. His last name is Montalone.
Yeah, the guy that's like 6'6" with the tattoos. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I love him. He's awesome.
Yeah, we hung out there. Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, no, he's hilarious. When I first started getting into comedy at the Blue Room, he's just a sweet guy and he's hilarious and he's a good energy to be around. I didn't know he liked cigars though, so that's something new.
I don't know that he does, but we did Pittsburgh, Kansas together.
Okay.
And then I was just going to be hanging out there, so I invited him.
Did you do the campus? Or what were you doing in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, there's a gig there on Thursday nights.
Huh.
It's at the Pittsburgh Auditorium, something like that. It's in the basement. It's called Basement Comedy.
Okay.
Great.
I didn't know that they did. I knew they did. I used to, when I traveled with bands, I knew they did a few shows in Pittsburgh at this little tiny bar. That's all I knew. And then they had the campus for Pittsburgh State University, which is not as, I don't think it's as grand as Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but it's something.
Yeah. That room's great. They pack it out.
That's cool. I'll have to go sometime. Now that I know. I think at the
time I had the attendance record though.
Really?
No big deal. But
did they know you were? They knew you were coming. Then it was like a planned event.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if you just happened to stop in at a mic or something, but.
Oh no! I headlined a gig there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's very fun. And then I'm back at Springfield, I think, in August.
That's too long, man. I was curious when you'd be back, so it's gonna be a minute.
I know. I'd like to be back sooner. I like it. Coming there.
Yeah. Well, and what else do you do when you're in town?
That's about it. I don't do a lot of that.
Have you ate it? Like I know. So I've hung out with a couple different production companies that bring in out of town guests, and they always talk about where they take them to eat. Did you eat anywhere cool downtown?
Yeah, I did, but I think I ate at like a Mediterranean place.
Oh, okay.
Downtown. Very good.
That's out of my realm. If it doesn't have gravy on it, I've probably not ate there.
Oh, yeah, it was really good. I like Springfield. I think they got a lot happening.
Depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for now the Comedy Lounge, which is booming, and country music. And
I love country.
Yeah, so there you go. So you're good. There's a lot of shows I wish we could get that we don't get, but we get a lot of big country shows. Like Randy Houser's come in, and all those guys come all the time. But
yeah, I just did the Grand Ole Opry.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do it again in April.
Okay, so I have a question about that. Do they normally do comedy at the Grand Ole Opry? Like I knew it was legendary in the country music world, but I wasn't familiar with stand-up being there.
They do some, but they used to do a bunch way back in the day, like Minnie Pearl and stuff like that. They used to have comedy regularly at the Opry, and then they haven't done it in a long time. So they have, I know of 3 people that have done it over the years, but they really want to bring it back. So living in Nashville, I hope to be a regular at the Opry.
Right. Well, that's cool, and you kind of have that cool thing where you kind of blend into country music and comedy genre, and have such a more wide range of people that hear it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'd like to do. I don't know if I will, but I'd like to do my breakdown of It's 5 o'clock somewhere at the Grand Ole Opry.
That'd be cool. I mean, it's when the people started telling me to check you out, I started watching your Fallon video, your Kimmel video, and then anything else I could find, and I started showing all my friends, and I've not found one person that's like. At first, they're like, I don't really like comedy, and I'm like, just watch Dusty, and it's like instant fall in love, and so I just it's great material, and I'm waiting for you to come out with like an hour-long special video, because I know you've got like some tapes out, right?
Yeah, I got a couple of albums. Yeah, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you showing people. Yeah, I just try to do regular person comedy. You know, just stuff that I think regular people can listen to and relate to.
Right.
You know, I mean, I like some weird jokes too. I like to try to write weird jokes when I can. I have some weird jokes on my albums. But, you know, overall, I like just, you know, pointing out regular stuff and talking about it in a unique way.
Right. And Southern comedy is so up my family's alley because we're all Southern people. And so just like your joke about how when the weatherman says you're supposed to go to your neighbor's house and you say, my neighbor also lives in a trailer.
Yeah.
Like that is so, like that is one of my all-time, because my family's from Tornado Alley, and that joke so much resonates. And it's so.
Yeah. Well, a tornado just hit in my town, in Alabama. Just hit, tore up a bunch of trailers. So yeah, it happens all the time. And my thing is that it's like, the trailer park that I grew up in, there was no ditch, and the houses that were near us that weren't trailers, they had privacy fences all blocking us off. So it's like, you know, when the warning is go to the ditch or go to a neighbor's house, it's like we don't have either of those. You know? And we live under pine trees, which are pretty fragile. I mean, the tree itself is sturdy, but the root structure just sits right on top of the ground, so the trees can just topple.
Right.
And, you know, so there's nothing to do. You know, there's nowhere to go. So it's like the weatherman saying, I got to say something. I got to tell you something. I don't know what it is, you know?
Well, so I know you also talk about how a lot of people think your hair is attached to your hat until you take it off. Do people also think you're doing like a complete fake voice as well?
Well, I don't know. Well, people have never said that to me on stage, but people used to say that to me in bars and stuff when I used to drink. I remember one specific time I started, because I used to smoke a lot of cigarettes and my voice would be a bit raspier. And then as I would get later in the night, I would get louder and my voice would get raspier.
Right.
And I remember talking to these people, and these two dudes, they were giving me this weird look like they wanted to fight me. But I kept talking to them, and all of a sudden one of the guys goes, "Oh, that's your real voice." And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "I thought you were like messing with us the whole time." And I was like, "No, I'm just talking to you, dude."
Well, kind of like I'm from the same hometown as Larry the Cable Guy, and people started to feel like they're like, he does a fake voice. And I was like, it's not that he does a fake voice, it's that he ups it when he's on stage. And I don't think you do the same thing, but it's the concept of people started to point out. And I was like, that really is his voice. He just really overplays it.
Well, that's what I think happens to me a little bit too. When I get on stage, you know, I have fun with the microphone. Right. Like a microphone is fun. I like to hear my voice. So it does, you know, it can change a bit, but I'm not like going, I'm going to do this big voice now.
Right.
I just get into the way a microphone sounds.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's so different, and I noticed like doing comedy in different rooms, it's so weird to hear your voice back depending on the acoustics of a room.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, you've been doing theaters all the time recently.
If you're in a big room, you want to be bigger, you know?
Right.
You want to like really like try to, but if you're in a small room, I can almost get a little quieter and kind of whisper comedy.
Right.
And I really like to do that. If I do a small bar, really kind of get in there and just whisper the jokes.
Well, and speaking of that, you just got off the Body Shots tour doing those big places. What's been a fun takeaway from that tour? I'm sure there's a lot, but
Kreischer's very nice, and it's very fun to hang out with him. You know, I quit drinking years ago, but I'd love to drink with him, but probably good that I don't. Bird has great crowds. I mean, you know, just the comedy that he does is just a fun comedy,
Right.
and that's the kind of comedy that I do. So his audience is like me, so we just have a good time.
Right. You never have a good time, do you, Dusty?
No. Well, that's why I'm saying I don't do a lot of things because I'm always having a good time, so I don't need to do stuff.
Well, you're going back on with Kreischer here pretty quick, aren't you?
No, I just came. I did 2 runs with him.
Okay, I knew that you had 2 different sections. I couldn't remember the exact.
Yeah, I just did New Orleans, Austin, and Dallas.
That's right. How was that?
Fantastic.
And how did you get linked up with that? Just through management, or?
Well, we have through management we got connected together. But I met Bert last year in Lexington, Kentucky. We did. I got just paired up with him through the club.
Okay.
And he liked me, and he talked to me about this tour that he was going on, and asked would I like to do some dates. So
awesome. So I was sad that it came close to here, but I didn't get a chance to run out, and because I like Bird, I like Segura and Rogan and all those guys that kind of do their thing.
Bert's great. I mean, he does over an hour every night. He loves it. I asked him, was it wearing him out that he was on this bus and doing shows every night? He said I'm having the best time of my life.
That's awesome. Well, I've known about him forever, but he's even more blown up recently because everyone in the comedy world knows the Machine joke. I mean, that's a big deal, but there's so much more to his comedy than that, and I think he just keeps growing, and I think that's awesome for him and for his crew and whatnot.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I love to see good things happen to people that I like. You know, and I think he's a good dude. I mean, he tips well. He treats people great, and you like to see people succeed that are like that.
Right. And so what else do you have coming up? I mean, obviously you're doing headlining shows of your own and whatnot over the country, but is there anything else?
Well, I'm in San Antonio next weekend at LOL. All of these things are on my website, dustyslade.com. I have a podcast that I do called the We're Having a Good Time podcast. Also, links to that are on my website, but it's on iTunes and whatnot. And I always tell where I'm going and whatnot. But I got Nashville Comedy Festival coming up in April. I'm going to... I'm in Grand Rapids all this weekend at Dr. Grin's with the Laugh Fest. So I thought all along that I would have my calendar to be able to look at to tell you, but now I realize that my calendar's on my phone.
So on that line, I had a show we did yesterday, and it was with a comedian Bob Smiley out of Houston, and we did this whole podcast deal promoting a show he was doing in my hometown. Come to find out at the end of the interview, the show had been canceled.
Oh, bummer.
Because at the end he's like, so when am I supposed to be in Springfield? And I was like, this website says May 25th. And he goes, my thing says that was canceled. I was like, oops. So I had to kind of cut that out. Because I'm like, no use promoting that. But, oops.
Yeah. Well, all my shows are up and running right now. I have a show in Nashville, March 27th. Bless you. And did you sneeze?
I don't know what came out of me. Both?
Oh, okay. I never say bless you, but I felt like we were on a thing together. It's only me and you. I should say it.
I'm kind of dying. Everyone around me keeps getting colds, and I'm kind of... Usually I'm immune, but I caught like this little bit of this something.
Oh.
It's fun to share mics with people.
Well, you should. There's a essential oil called oil of oregano. If you take 1 drop, put it in a cup of water, drink it, I think it will fix you.
For real? Is that a real deal?
Don't do more than 1 drop, but 1 drop.
What happens if you do more than 1 drop?
Well, it burns.
Oh.
Like in a terrible way. We did like a whole, you have that little tube that you squeeze it and it fills up. I did a whole tube, and you're only supposed to do 1 drop, and I think it really burned my esophagus up. So I was in a lot of pain. Yeah, so don't do that, because there's nothing you can do. Once you take it, it doesn't come back.
Oh.
It hurt my eyes before, too. It really burned me up. You read your own instructions before doing it.
I did. A friend of mine have you ever used tobacco snuff before?
Yes.
So I thought it was a lot harsher than it was, and I realized it was just this finely ground tobacco powder. And he was like, try it once. And that crap, I was crying. It burned.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I've only done it once, but I did it in Fargo, North Dakota. They have this little thing where
my shirt is something. I think it's South Dakota, the Full Throttle Saloon.
All right. Well, there's a little thing. You put a little snuff right here, and then they have a thing that they flip, right? And you just put your face right here, and they flip it, and then you like that, and it's like taking a like a little key bump of tobacco, and it's pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, my buddy, I was like, "What's the perk?" And he told me the perk was like, it clears your sinuses, it smells like mint, and it'll give you a little bit of a nicotine buzz. There was no nicotine buzz. It was just me crying.
I was all in it for the nicotine buzz. I think you could do too much. And also, maybe he just had skull and somebody told him it was snuff.
I don't think. In skull, I've never actually. Isn't that like a lot more liquidy and chunky?
Yeah, it can be.
Ugh. I don't get the dip thing. Did you? You said you used to smoke. Did you used to dip?
Yeah, I used to dip too.
I couldn't do it, man.
I used to smoke so many cigarettes that my lungs would hurt, but I was still addicted to nicotine, so I would dip until my lungs got better.
So I take that's why you probably quit.
Yeah, now I like cigars because you don't inhale those.
Right.
But dipping, it just gets gross, and you have spit bottles all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I would take it you probably live in a house now?
Well, not a trailer, but I live in an apartment.
Okay.
I'm all about that city life now.
Yeah. Well, like the Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty, he still lives, I believe, in a double wide trailer.
Oh, yeah. Well, double wides are pretty fancy, I would live in a trailer. I just don't want to live in a trailer park. I don't mind living in a trailer. I just don't want my address to be a trailer park address. There's nothing more demeaning than having your address be a trailer park. Like, give me a regular street address, There's no other house like that. You don't have to write down what kind of house you live in,
right.
Except if you live in a trailer park.
I work at a property, and I was looking at it. I'd never seen an address for a trailer park, and it literally just said trailer number 17 or whatever on the ID.
My address was Lot 8 Moore's Trailer Park, So I'm in school having to write down a trailer park address, You could just give me you could name the street,
right.
And then I'm number 8.
Right.
Number 8 County Road,
Do you still have family that lives in trailer parks?
Probably, but no immediate family that I know about.
Oh, okay.
We've all moved into houses now.
Yeah.
We're really moving up. Getting off the wheels.
I went to so there's kind of a sketch trailer park here, and there was a sign that said firewood for sale. And we've always had fire pits, and so my dad pulled in, and he couldn't find which house it was, but he saw this huge pile of firewood. He's like, probably that house, right? And so he knocked on the door, and this shirtless dude comes out and goes, "What do you need?" "Well, are you the one selling firewood?" "No, but what do you need?" "I just need some firewood." And the dude just, "Do you want to die today?" We stopped going to trailer park. Like, he had probably, like, I don't know, 2 trees worth of firewood in his front yard. But he
trailer parks can be pretty sketchy, There can be good ones, but they can be sketchy.
Yeah, like I know my grandma used to live in, like, I don't know what the difference is between a trailer park and a mobile home park technically.
I don't think, well, there could be like a like a RV park.
Yeah.
That's a little different.
Yeah.
But I think a mobile home is a fancy word for a trailer.
Although on your trailer home, could you see the wheels?
Well, you put a little tin around there. You got to put a little tin around the bottom. It covers it up.
Okay.
keeps the cats from getting under there and having kittens. They get in there and they dig in your insulation under the trailer, and then they have kittens in there. And then all you hear is meow, meow, meow. You hear it all throughout your trailer.
You sound like you speak from experience.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in a trailer. And my sister used to live next door, so in the trailer park. So we had our own little. We were holding it down. We had a 2-lot thing. We had our own little trailer courtyard there.
Well, and what was it like to go from that to being on something like Jimmy Fallon?
Well, I moved to Charleston, South Carolina, and when I was 21. So I lived there for 10 years before ever getting anything like late night. So it was more of a thing to go from the trailer park to Charleston, which was this very classy city. But to know that I'm standing on the stage on the Tonight Show is it's pretty crazy. You know, I don't know that I ever really think about it in the sense that I'm like, but I don't know. I guess I do. I don't know. I mean, it just it's funny to try to think about how I used to think when I lived in the trailer park versus how I think now. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Right.
Because where I'm at now, I think, well, yeah, of course I'm on the Tonight Show. I mean, I've been driving around from city to city for 5 years, doing comedy everywhere and anywhere, doing it for free, doing it for cheap, really been working it. So it's like by the time I make it there, like I'm like, yes, of course I'm here. I've worked for this, you know? But to think about where I started from in life, it is pretty crazy.
Right.
You know?
Right. Well, and
it took me 10 years in Charleston to get myself in a mindset where I could be productive.
Right.
You know, like I just felt like I had a poor mentality where I was like, I'm poor. I'm always going to be poor. This is who I am. I had to pull myself out of that, you know?
Right. Well, and how did you pay rent traveling the country without getting paid?
Well, I moved into an apartment in Nashville. I moved into an attic apartment for $250 a month. And I saved money for a long time. And all the shows that I did weren't free. But but there are a lot of free shows along the way, you know, where it's like, if I wanted to get booked at a club in Indianapolis, and that's 4 hours away, and I wanted to, so what I would do was email about doing a guest spot. And then they would say, yeah, you can do a guest spot. So I would drive there, either sleep on someone's couch, rent a hotel, or drive back and do 5 minutes. So there's no money in that. But in return, I got booked, and I got a feature weekend out of it, which I made money. And then for 3 or 4 years, I featured at this club, and then I got moved up to headliner. So I organically worked my way all the way up in this club.
Okay.
But meantime, it's like you don't make very much money. You know, you don't make anything doing guest spots or showcases or open mics. But it's all about the stage time, and it's all about, you know, working your way up.
Right.
So, but keeping your expenses low is key.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can't, buy a brand new car, have a car payment, move into an expensive apartment, and then expect to one day be able to quit your job.
Right. Well, but how did you? That's something I've always found interesting. Is people they have a job that gives them enough time off to travel.
Well,
I'm just switching the button here. There we go.
I never really had that. I had a full-time job for 10 years, and I decided to quit that job mainly because I hated the job. I didn't quit the job necessarily for comedy. I quit because I hated it, and I went back to waiting tables. But then I was like, I got to figure something out. So I started working and figuring out how to do comedy, how to get paid for comedy. And then once I decided what I wanted to do, I took a seasonal job. So I had a job that lasted for 6 months. I knew it was only going to last for 6 months, and my goal was work this job, and when this job ends, never get another one again.
Okay.
And I saved money, and then when that job ended, I mean, for the first 2 months, I had maybe one paying gig. But every day I sat down, I emailed comedy clubs, I emailed radio stations, I emailed everything trying to get gigs. And then slowly I started to build up, a list of comedy bookers and things like that. And it took a lot of time. I mean, and then one guy out of Nashville took me on the road with him to do some gigs, but those gigs were very low pay.
Right.
But it helped me. And then you start to learn to sell things and just get, on the road, sell T-shirts and, CDs. But it's all about management. I mean, there's a whole business side to comedy that I think a lot of people miss out on because, there's that balance of being a salesman and also an artist. You know, I mean, you don't want to, sell out and become a T-shirt salesman. You know what I mean? But you also want to make money.
So you never did get a job again after that seasonal 6 months then?
Did. The next year when that seasonal job came back around, I called them and I asked if I needed it, would they hire me back? And they said yes. But then all of a sudden, right about that time, I auditioned for a guy, and he booked me on 11 weekends for that year, which was enough. Each of those gigs was enough to pay my rent each month. So I was like, all right, I'm good.
Right. Wow.
But it's like, I've gotten rid of that car now, but I ended up having a car that I put 315,000 miles on.
Wow.
And, just don't buy things. I mean, I buy a little more now. I got a little more money, but I just don't buy stuff. I don't, when I get a little money, I don't go buy a new flat screen TV or a gold chain or, I just manage my money.
Right.
I mean, I waste it on cigars and fried chicken and stuff like that. But, you know what I mean? But I try not to buy big things.
Right. Well, I think it's a big difference. I mean, I have a friend who took a credit card and bought a $1,200 electric skateboard. And I'm like, no, probably not the best investment.
Terrible investment. Especially since most cities just have electric scooters on the street that you can just scan and ride.
Yeah, that's dangerous. I don't know how those. I don't think those are gonna last. I did one at the old Rams stadium in St. Louis, and I was going probably 20 miles an hour down the sidewalk, and I was like, "There's no way these are like safe."
Yeah, I mean, there's been some bad crashes. I ride them sometimes.
We don't have them here yet. I don't know why, but we don't.
I was in Phoenix, and I was trying to walk to this cigar shop, and it was so far away. I thought this will be a nice stroll. But like halfway, I'm like 20 minutes into the walk, I see a scooter, and I walked over and scanned it and just rode it the rest of the way. It doesn't make you look much of like a man pulling up to a cigar shop on a scooter, though. I will say that.
Well, was it there when you had to leave?
It was still there, yeah. I just left it.
That's my thing.
I Ubered out of there.
I'm like a huge Oklahoma State football fan, and I went up to Oklahoma, and they had them on campus. So I rode that thing all over the stadium, like on the outside of the stadium, and then the game ended, and there was not one to be found, and I had to walk back to my car.
Oh, yeah.
I got screwed. But, whew. So your recommendation to comics is send a lot of emails.
Yeah, I mean, I always say this. I say be polite, be persistent, and I have 3 P's, and now I can't remember the other one. Polite, persistent, and patient. Because what's going to happen, this is how it's going to go. You're gonna get a list of emails, a list of bookers. You're gonna send out your avails to all those bookers, and then you're gonna be so excited. You're gonna say, "I've sent all these avails today. I'm gonna get a bunch of gigs," and then no one is gonna email you back, and then you're gonna be mad, And then either you're going to quit sending the emails right then, or you're going to do it one more time. The next month you'll send it, and you'll be excited. And then no one will give you any gigs, or maybe not even any replies. And then so the next email you'll get rude, or you'll be like, why aren't you giving me gigs? And then you burn your bridges with those people from now on. So I say send all the emails and fully expect that no one is going to respond to you. But every month, send those emails and be polite, almost more polite every time. Each month that goes by, you can remind them that you've emailed them several times, but be polite about it. Say, hey, I'm just really excited. I'd really love to work your club. Here's a list of avails. I'm happy to come do a guest spot. Here's a 5-minute video. Here's a 30-minute video, and I always include all that information. And then, if you're just patient, eventually you're going to get a gig. And then that gig, you just got to go and you got to nail it. You got to go and crush it. And then, hopefully you make a reference out of that. They can reference you to other clubs. Over time, it builds. You got to think of comedy as the long game, because people want to think, I need this gig now, but you may not get the gig for a year, but then it may be something that you work for the next 10 years.
Right.
You know?
When you're saying avail, you mean like a list of availability? Just specify?
Yeah, I say, I always like to give the dates of Thursday through Sunday. Because some clubs will be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Some will be Friday, Saturday. Some will be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
So I like to give all of those dates. I like to say, hey, I'm available from this time to this time. Some people will ask me, well, what if I'm available all the time? I say, well, send all those dates. If it makes you more comfortable, if you want to look busy, take a couple of those weekends off and pretend like you're booked. But I say give them as many options as possible, and just say I'm willing to come for a guest spot. Even if you have to drive up, spend $100 on a hotel, and make no money, it's worth it if you get booked. And then it's just like, it's all thinking about it the long game. You're like, if you're wanting to do comedy for a living, then you can't think about it in terms of, I'm going to do this for a little while and then become famous. I mean, my outlook is always, I want to do comedy forever. Like, if I even, some people are afraid to become like these road comics that end up working the road for 30 years. But as far as I'm concerned, I used to sell pesticides for a living, and working the road for 30 years is better than selling pesticides.
You won't get you won't get an argument out of me.
Yeah, it's fine that I do comedy like that. And then if I decide that I don't want to do comedy like that anymore, I could just sell pesticides again and be fine. I mean, I just think that people have this idea that life is either regular and boring or you're famous, right? I mean, life can be fun no matter what you're doing, right? So if I had to quit comedy today, then for 6 years I got to travel the road doing comedy for a living, That's very exciting to me.
Right.
I could easily just go work at Home Depot and be fine with it. Maybe not fine with it, but I can do it. You know what I mean? And so it's like, so if you just look at comedy from that standpoint and say, I'm just going to do it the best I can do, I'm going to be the best comic that I can be, things will come. The money will come. If you're really good, I mean, you have to be honest with yourself. If you're being the best comic that you can be and that's not good, then maybe do something else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
if you're
that's so
trying
hard.
your hardest and you're just not good at it, then maybe comedy's not for you. That doesn't mean you can't make a living in a creative field, but maybe it's just not comedy.
Well, that's interesting. I listening to different comedians, I've always tried to look at my stuff, and when someone says something like I didn't like that, I'm like, tell me. I was like, I want to know, because I need to know what sucks, and I want to know if what I think good sucks. And so I think that's a huge part, is being able to look at it objectively and And I'm not the best one to I'm taking that advice, not giving that advice.
Yeah, and if you want to know if a joke sucks or not, write it down on a picture of yourself and put it on Reddit. They'll be honest with you. I've only had one successful joke on Reddit. I quit putting stuff on there. I used to do that early on. I quit doing that.
My thing with that is a big part of, like, especially is the delivery of the joke.
Right.
And
yes.
so, like, with being able to see
you or hear visually, it can a lot of times make the joke that would never have been funny on a picture.
Right. That's what I think too. I had one successful joke on Reddit, and it did really well, but the rest was just people trashing me. So I quit that. But, yeah, I mean, it's all about your outlook with everything, right? I mean, it's like, if you want to do comedy, work to do it. If you want to, it's like, sometimes it may be too early to try to start getting booked in clubs. Like,
Yeah.
I lived in Charleston, South Carolina for 5 years. I only did bar shows, theater shows, and stuff like that before I ever tried to get booked in a club. I mean, I spent all that time getting good at comedy, building up a set. If you have a local comedy club, by all means, try to get up, try to become a host, try to host regularly, try to do the showcases. But if you're just starting out, you may not be ready to book in a club.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of where I'm at this point. Is I don't feel right trying to go, but because Springfield has some great comics. Like you said, Tim, and I know you're Derek Luna just opened for you recently, and that's just there's a lot more than that, but there's a lot of great comics here.
Yeah. I mean, Tim's really funny. Derek's funny. And I don't even want to say because right now I can't think of her name, but she did the Pittsburgh show with us. She's very funny, but now she's probably the first Springfield comic I met.
Let's see. If it's a female, it's probably either Katie or Gio or Anna. Anna Fleeman. And Anna Fleeman kind of.
Yeah, Anna Fleeman. Yeah, that's almost the first person I met.
Okay, really? Okay.
How did you come across her first?
For us in Pittsburgh.
Okay. Gotcha.
Oh, this is the best angle. I should have been doing this the whole time. I don't think it's going to hold, though. Yeah, so it's like, you just got to be realistic about it. I mean, it's like, if you're just learning to paint, you're probably not going to sell those paintings for very much.
Right.
So get good at painting and then go out and try to sell it. And then, the better you get, the more money you can get for them,
Right.
It's like in learning to play guitar. I mean, some people will say, it takes so long to learn guitar. Like, let's say it takes 10 years and they're like, well, I'm 20. I wish I'd have started when I was younger. But if you start now, by the time you're 30, you'll be great at guitar and you have the rest of your life. And even at 30, by the time you're 40, you'll be great. If you start when you're 40, by the time you're 50, you're great. Still a lot of life and a lot of time to play.
Right. Well, that's something that
I'm trying to grasp is so interesting is people like the big one among comics is Dangerfield, who got famous when he was older, and there's just so many. The Stanley from the show The Office, he didn't start acting till he was in his 40s. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah, I mean, even Bert Kreischer is a great example. I mean, he's in his 40s. We were in Austin, and he told me that he was like, this was like a month ago, not even a month ago. He said, 3 years ago today is when I put out my Machine video. And he was like, that Machine video has done everything for me.
Right.
So it's like, he was in his 40s when that happened, but he had been on the road for 20 years.
Wow.
Or at least doing comedy for 20 years.
Right. Well then,
so all the overnight successes have been doing comedy for 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, and that's something because, like I said, I'm came from the music world. I've been playing music since I was a little kid, and the rapper NF, he had a song, and he was talking about how the people that you see are overnight have probably been doing it for years. Because this guy is now on the radio and everyone's finding him, but he's been making music for 10 years, and you couldn't even find his videos on YouTube, and now he's getting platinum records, and people think he just came out of nowhere.
Oh yeah.
And obviously, like you said, this kind of is the same with you. Because once people see you, on anyone watches Fallon, all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, this comic's brand new. You should check him out."
Right.
Not brand new, but.
But I feel great. I mean, that's what I love about comedy. I feel like the older you get, the better you get at comedy. I mean, I think, the older you get, the less likely you'll become famous because, I think Hollywood wants young people. But I just think that you can get better. Like Brian Regan, I think, is a great example of somebody who's an amazing comic, probably the best, if not the best, one of the best, makes tons of money. No one knows who he is. We all know who he is, but the general public, they don't know who Brian Regan is.
Right.
But yet he sells out theaters all the time.
Yeah, and that's
strange to me.
Yeah.
Because that's everywhere. Like, I'll see a band that I've never heard of. No one knows who they are. They'll come to Springfield and pack out a venue. And I'm like, who is this?
Yeah. Why?
But then you have people like John Mulaney just came and sold out 2 nights. I've never seen someone do that because it wasn't at a comedy venue. It was just at a general venue, and he sold out. They added a second night, and he sold that out. And I think Chappelle did the same thing. And most people the most people I talk to don't even know who those people are. So I mean, I think your point is valid, but something kind of interesting, and I think you're kind of in the same boat as Regan. Is you've chose to do a more clean style comedy that can go to such a variety of people.
Oh yeah. Do you see that?
now you look like a very artistic Dusty Slay.
Did that work?
It changed.
Oh, it went away, huh?
Yeah, but it worked for a second.
That's fun. Yeah, I try to work clean mainly because I'm just not. That's how I am. I'm just not a dirty person. But like some people are like, I cuss in my comedy because I cuss all the time in real life. And that's fine. I like a lot of dirty comedy, but that's just not how I am, and it just doesn't seem good coming from me. But also, starting out, if you're trying to get work, it's going to be a lot easier to get gigs if you're clean.
Yeah.
Just because even a lot of dirty headliners still want clean headliners. Or clean openers.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's like, because if you're a dirty headliner and you're like, this is my thing, I'm the dirty guy, then you don't want the openers to ruin that before you even get on stage.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
So it's like, you don't have to be clean, but having the ability to work clean is going to help you.
Right.
But if you have to go in your set and change all your F-bombs to words like friggin' or whatever, then you're going to look like a guy who's trying not to cuss. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where if you just write that way from the beginning, you won't sound that way.
Well, and did you
I think that I'm going to try to get myself some food out here. I gotta get to the venue around 6:30, and I'm gonna try to get a little food before I go.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on a lot. Like I said, we're big fans, and thank you for all the great advice. I'm going to send this out. Hopefully, a lot of comics will watch and listen. That's nothing short of amazing advice. So.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, and I hope people can use it. And I always like to tell people if you don't want any of that advice, then don't take it. I mean, people like to think I'm trying to tell them what to do, and I'm like, I don't care what people do. If there's more comics than there are gigs, so people are fighting for them.
Right.
I'm just trying to share what I did, and because I think comedy is fun. I have such a great time. I mean, comedy is what I do, what I spend most of my life doing.
Right.
And I think it's great. And my website is dustyslay.com if you want to check out dates and check out the podcast. I mean, I'm all over the place.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much, Dusty.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, a million times. Hey, have a good luck on your shows this weekend, and I'll see you here in Springfield pretty soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it.